Hello and welcome. I'm Kate.
And I'm Emily, and this is Beyond the Neurotype,
A podcast that explores what it's like to be human affirming, regardless of labels, considerate of every person's individual needs, and allowing us to, ideally, understand what is behind every individual's actions, choices, and needs.
We do this with curiosity and love as we explore these individual and unique experiences that are rich with challenges, growth, and grace.
I'm Kate, a mental health social worker and synergetic play therapist. I'm the co-founder of the Village Therapy Hub. I'm a mum to 2 adolescents, and I love understanding and exploring what is happening beneath the surface for children and adults, and what behaviours are communicating to us. But let me keep it real. Much like yours, my life is a roller coaster. So I also understand the complexities of being a carer, the challenges of the day-to-day, and I won't pretend it's all enjoyable.
I'm Emily, a neurodivergent mum to a beautiful autistic girl and wife to a wonderful autistic man. I'm passionate about celebrating neurodiversity and creating a community where people are seen, held, and loved for who they truly are. It is my hope that as you listen to the stories of our beautiful guests, you feel inspired, validated, and supported in your journey.
This podcast is recorded on the land of the Dja Dja Wurrung people. We offer our heartfelt gratitude to the traditional custodians and elders, past, present, and emerging, for continued opportunities to learn, reflect, and grow.
Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be discussing our reflections after our wonderful episode last week with Sarah Kundibird, where we talked about her yoga journey and lots of different things. Hi, Kate.
Yeah, hello. It was a really interesting episode. Lots of threads and pieces that had me thinking about what I lean into and what I lean away from was probably one of the biggest pieces that I was left sitting with.
Yeah. I loved how we talked about all the different errors, as she calls it, and
Yes.
how I can relate to that quite strongly as someone who has quite, a few errors. Lots to get in today.
I really loved that. That's a really lovely language to use. Like, I've never thought about my life as being errors. Eras helps me.
Yeah, not
Otherwise, I feel like
errors.
I feel like I'm saying errors, like they're problems. Eras.
No, eras. Yes.
So I loved that. I've never ever thought about my life as a series of eras. I just think of it as a whole bunch of really random things I did, and I'm not sure how they all kind of connect. But when you think about them as eras, you see them as growth, or as like, in this stage I was exploring this part of me, and then in this stage I was exploring this part of me, and that they all come together to create one, which is a really beautiful way to think about that.
Yeah, it just makes me think of Taylor Swift, but
Well, yeah.
But that's such a good example of it, of, just embracing all the bits that, and the cringy, 15-year-old love songs, and the, led you to where you are today. It's
Yeah, and as much as we think about them as like completely different versions of ourselves, like, I did this thing and now it's completely different to what I'm doing now, each piece that we spent time in was an exploration of a part of us, and at that time that part was being explored to its, whatever depth we needed to go to for that part. And then that part comes with us in a new growth into our new next era. And then we might work on a different part, but we've got the previous part that we've built up. And then so they all grow and build together to bring us to where we are right now. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
permission for the unfolding, I felt.
Yeah, no, agree. And while externally it can look very different, like, motorcycle journey, and now I've photographed families and babies and pregnancy photos, like they look quite different, but actually internally what's going on might actually be, quite linked in how you've got from one thing to the other. Yeah.
Yeah, and that they probably have a common core if we were to really dissect and pull it apart. And I'm thinking about that from my own eras, that yes, they look very different. I've done everything from being a real estate agent, a Tupperware salesperson. Now I'm a therapist, and I've had different eras within that too, and different industries I've worked in. And I was even a corrections officer at one point, and went and visited people in prison to determine their eligibility for parole. Like, that feels so far from what I do now.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm sure. The list of my jobs is long. But when I think about it, they probably all had a theme that was a common thread through them all that has kept me moving through the eras until I find in the moment what one is serving me the best for right now, because I also have no misconception that where I am right now is where I'll be in 10 years time, or even in 5 years time. So this is an era too.
Yeah. And that we're just in a particular era to grow a skill or to develop in some way that is going to serve us in another completely different way down the track that we have no idea about.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? That the trust in the process that we have to surrender to at times, as much as when things feel really hard and really overwhelming, we want to rein in our control and become really controlling over what we're doing and what's happening, and to kind of create safety. But ultimately, the surrendering to the trust that it is all serving a purpose, and that this all will lead somewhere, no matter how hard it feels right now, is really incredible.
Yeah, I think about when I was in my 1950s vintage era, where I got really into I've always loved that style, and but I was too scared to even wear a dress. I always just wore jeans, and even just wearing a dress was like this act of kind of majorly putting myself out there. And it's so funny looking back on that as this pivotal, it seems really shallow almost, that fashion, looking at, an interest in fashion is kind of but it's been such a huge turning point for me in learning how to just be myself, be brave, come out of my shell. Yeah, and then
fashion is such an expression of authenticity. So you, and that era, you needed to move that piece of yourself.
Yeah, and in the face of people that thought it was a bit weird, that you're wearing 1950s dresses and flowers in your hair or whatever, and and kind of flying in the face of that was probably a huge thing for me too. Is people pleaser, trying to just keep myself small and invisible, and not rock the boat or upset anyone. And it was my first little oh, well, I'm going to do this, and I actually don't care what people think, and if they think it's silly or it made me, this chat with Sarah really made me kind of think about that, and that I then started a business selling dresses briefly, and and that was amazing, and that's given me I suppose, this foundation of like courage to try something new, which has then led me in a completely different path. And now I work in the medical industry, and that's where I hope to stay for a while. But I wouldn't have been brave enough to take the jump into that had it not been for wearing a 1950s dress.
Isn't that incredible? Because we've talked previously, I know I've talked in previous episodes about how much of a chameleon I can be in terms of showing up how I expect people to present myself, and often doing that with what I'm wearing. And so for you, there was this incredible piece where you needed to first explore, how do I want to present in the world? What makes me feel really good when I put it on? What lights me up? And that then shifted you to a job in an industry that you really were connected to and interested in. But you needed to have stepped into your presentation first.
Yeah. 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 And it's, yeah. So, yeah, they're outwardly so disconnected. In fact, I can't even wear my own clothes to work. So, it's,
Right. So now you're in
yeah.
an industry with a uniform.
Yeah. Which sucks. But yeah, it's quite funny when I look at it. It's like, oh, I've had to, yeah, learn to express myself to now be in a position where I can't express myself with what I wear and how I present. But yeah, so
What I'm
you've got
really
to feel
curious
that.
about with that is that I wonder if you needed to be really clear on who you are and how you like to present and how you feel really good to be able to go and work in an industry where you have to look like everybody else,
Mm,
because you could easily, if you hadn't have rooted yourself in this is who I am, you could get really lost in an industry where everyone looks the same. Like that's
mm,
ultimate chameleon territory, because you can just go there and completely lose yourself and your own identity. So
mm.
you did this really incredible piece first that was around finding my identity and really getting roots in that to be able to step into, yeah, potential risk of losing identity. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Mm,
And often these
yeah.
things happen and we have no consciousness of them.
Mm,
We don't often stop and reflect on the past and the different things that happened and how they've gathered us up. You know, we're a rolling moss ball, I suppose. So we just gather bits as we go, and then it creates the growth.
mm,
There was
yeah.
one line that Sarah said that has stuck with me, which was the thread that becomes the rope. And I've
Mm,
been thinking about that a lot in terms of the tiny little threads that have existed for me at different times, and which of those have built enough strength and big enough to become a rope and something I can actually really hold on to.
that's powerful. I missed that quote. Yeah, so it's interesting that become something that's, yeah,
Mm,
really strong for you. But I love that. It's such beautiful imagery. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
And it gives permission for, because right now I feel like there's a couple of threads hanging out around me that I feel like I can't get any real grasp on, but they're kind of there and they're just kind of fleeting around. And so now I feel this sense of that's okay. Like that's happened before. And with growth and circumstance and all kinds of pieces aligning, those threads have grown in strength and become more rope-like.
Mm,
And these ones have the potential to as well. And perhaps I don't need to worry so much about how to turn them into ropes. Maybe I can just sit in, yeah, okay, they're there, and I'll let them kind of grow, let them become a bit foundational.
yeah, it's kind of almost like maybe there's some other threads that need to fall into place first, and then
Mm.
before they can then take their place as part of the rope, that they're going to hang there for a little bit, and that's okay because, yeah, it's not where they're supposed to be placed in the rope yet.
Yeah. And because maybe I've got some like not quite threads, but not quite ropes. And they're the ones that are needing all of my time and energy right now. And once they fully mature, then I'll go back to the threads again. Because it's also a nice reminder that we're constantly in evolution. Like there's no end game. There's no thread that's going to turn into a rope and then I'm going to go, aha, great, I've arrived. Now I'm done. There will constantly be threads for me to pick up and work with.
Yeah, and that's so nice too. You know, I for a long time kind of felt like I need to find myself. And once you find yourself, then that's it, right? Then you've done it, you've made it.
Yeah.
And yeah. And yeah, realizing that never happens. And you just find bits of yourself or discover new things about yourself, and yeah, you just
And
kind of
also loving that never happens, because it
yeah.
means that like there's unexplored eras and versions of me. And that's pretty fun to think about, that there's still, I could still be all kinds of people.
Yeah, no, I love it. Feel like I'm happier now when I kind of have flipped into more of that, yeah, let's see what's next kind of mode versus, oh, I need to, do this to make sure I'm sorted and that I'm,
Yeah.
finding me. And yeah.
And I wonder if part of that is also because we talk a lot about the impact that societal expectations have on us in many parts of our life. And I wonder if part of that is also realizing that nobody else is deciding or actually has the end decision on how we want to be in the world, that actually anything is possible. And therefore we can just connect with what it is that we want and need in this moment.
Mm.
Because I think that's the key to ultimately feeling happy, because happiness is going to come from a strong sense of security and a strong sense of identity. And I don't think the end goal is happiness. I think happy is the wrong word. Content in the fluctuation that is life, because life will always be ebbs and flows. Like life is a roller coaster, whether we like it or not. We are on a roller coaster for life. I always say sometimes the roller coaster, because I don't actually like roller coasters very much, so it's actually a pretty nauseating analogy for me. Idea of a roller coaster makes me feel quite unwell. But I figure that life is kind of like a roller coaster. And at times you're like, on some lovely up bit that you're looking around and the view's beautiful and it's all very nice. And other times it's terrifying and you're heading downwards at full speed. And then sometimes you have a blindfold on and you can't tell what is coming next. And it's just a total mystery and you're just going with whatever happens. Then other times the track has holes in it and you feel like you're going to just plummet to your death at any moment, because how can this possibly be okay? So it's just this it's interesting that I won't ride roller coasters in real life, but that's how my main metaphor for how life is.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
no,
grimacing.
it is. Yeah. No, I'm not one for roller coasters either, but it is a good metaphor for life. I feel like, though, in a roller coaster, even the good bits aren't that good. Like, just feel sick.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think it's because, the roller coaster analogy sticks really strongly with me because I found parenting like riding a roller coaster with a blindfold on that has cracks in the track. And as my children have gotten older, there's been more cracks in the track. And so generally that analogy really works for me when I'm thinking about when I can really resonate with how nauseous I feel and how terrified I am. But my preferred analogy for life that I've been trying to connect with more recently is saying that life is like a giant long walk, and potentially a walk up a mountain, because often it feels like we're lugging ourselves somewhere, but that at times you can just stop and look out at the view and have a rest and appreciate how far you've come, and look back down and think, oh, I've traversed all of that ground and now here I am. And then sometimes you look up and you see this mighty hill ahead of you and you think, how am I ever going to get up that hill? This is too steep, but 1 foot at a time. Ultimately, you reach the end, the top, the next top. And sometimes you reach that top and think, thank goodness that's over, only to look up and see another steep incline and think, God, not immediately. I just needed a minute. But there's moments in that where you can stop and really appreciate the view as well and get rest and take a moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have people with you on your hike. Sometimes you're alone on your hike. Sometimes strangers turn up and give you a helping hand, and it's exactly what you needed in that moment and you didn't even know it. And sometimes
That's a
you
nice
think that you're the
analogy.
only one struggling on your hike, and you're looking at people hiking past you and you're like, God, how are they doing that? And like, why are they finding this so easy? Why am I the only one that's so exhausted I can't go any further? But we don't know what their experience is. We're just watching them hike past us. And then we might get up and that top bit again and find that they're exhausted, sitting there, not able to go on, and we're able to keep going. Yeah, I really like metaphors, and I could pretty much
I
just
like
keep
that.
growing and growing and growing this. So
Yeah. I'm thinking some people have got more bricks in their backpack than others. Like,
I love that. Some people are carrying more weight than others. Some people are lugging like other humans up the mountain, and other people are on their own wishing that they had someone else with them. Yeah. Some people have run out of water and they're wondering where they're ever going to find water again on this mountain.
mm, I like that.
Yeah.
Let's stick with that than roller coasters.
Yeah, yeah. We'll keep the roller coaster for when things are really hard and we feel really nauseous. But yes, otherwise, because the bush, I love the bush. So that works for me because I imagine I'm surrounded by trees. And so even when things feel really hard and grueling, there's a tree nearby that I could at least stop and have a little look at and appreciation. And there might be a bird sound and I can feel some fresh air. And it's interesting that we've gone here on this conversation because not that long ago, it was Sarah's story about holding her arms in the air for 62 minutes
Mm,
that got me through a particularly grueling hike that I was doing, because I am a hiker. I was on a ridge that just was never ending, and it was really hot and it was just excruciating. I just can't even. And I honestly thought I was just going to die up there. Like I probably felt like I could just surrender and give up on the top of that ridge. It was so hard. And then I thought to myself, Sarah held her arms in the air for 62 minutes. If she can hold her arms in the air for 62 minutes, I can keep putting 1 foot in front of the other. I just need to focus on my breath. And in the end, that's how I got through it. All I did was put 1 foot in front of the other. And the only thought I had was breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out for probably an hour. But I just kept thinking to myself, surely this is not as hard as holding my arms in the air for 62 minutes.
yeah. I know that's become one of her, I suppose, mantras, I guess, with her yoga is can you hold the pose a little longer?
Mm.
And just, yeah, but when you want to give up, can you hold it a little longer?
And I often remind myself that I can, there's an old saying, you've survived 100% of your bad days. So I often remind myself that I can do hard things. And I'll often tell myself, you can do something hard for a minute. Just do it for the next minute, and then the next minute, and then the next minute. And eventually the minutes will collect and you'll have passed a passage of time. and perhaps the hardness will have shifted for a moment and it'll feel okay again. But it really is sometimes about just the very next thing, the very next step, just one thing at a time.
Mm.
And that was really what she was saying when she talked about holding that pose just a little bit longer, that it's just don't think about that it's going to be 62 minutes. Think about what you need in this moment to get you to keep on going. And that's so often something I grab as in my life when things feel really tough. It's like, okay, you can't project this fear into your future and need to keep sticking with just do this thing, get through this piece.
Oh, and I'm like, when things are overwhelming, I find it so hard to picture how I'm going to get through that and what my life's going to look like. And, now I'm trying to plan 5 years down the track and, all of this to try and solve this problem of how am I going to, cope with, I'm going to have to change this and I'm going to have to do this. And, and how am I going to do that because of this thing over here? And, just taking that step back and let's just get through the next minute.
Yeah.
The next focus on now.
Yeah. Because it's pretty hard. Like we both have experiences of kids with school can't. And I'm going to take that as a particular example in this because when your child can't go to school, the potential to have massive concern about what that means for their future is very real. My kid's not going to know. They're not going to have an education. They're not going to know how to do anything. How are they ever going to have any kind of a job? Like the capacity to really lose yourself in the worry of that is very real. What I've found is that if I can just stay in the now and think about what it is we need right now and how to make that happen. And often that brings me back to connection, that if we can just find a way to connect, if we can just find a way to say what we need and express that, that actually that lays the path forward. But in totally trusting that it will get there, like that however it's going to unravel, it will. It's all going to be what it needs to be. But far out, that can be, it's like so scary, it keeps you awake at night at times.
Yeah. Yeah, and the implications of, you're thinking of your child, but also logistically how it's going to work, financially how it's going to work,
Yeah.
all of those. So easy to then spiral. Okay, well, if we move this piece here, then that means that this piece over here needs to shift. And so then where's that going to go? And does that mean we move this piece here because these might fit better? And And we've had a lot of that this year, and it's just learning to sit, like you say, sit in the shit for a bit, and just sit there a bit longer, and it just can fall into place sometimes a bit more easily than what you first imagined.
It's pretty hard to push shit up a hill. So sometimes we do have to sit in it to be able to find the way out of it rather than just trying to push it up a hill.
I'm liking this hiking metaphor.
Yeah, if some shit turns up, you best just stop, spend some time looking at it rather than pick it up and try and push it up the hill with you. You don't want to take that shit up there. Deal with it where it is. So it's so many things, because the challenge I find is that there's a strong potential for resentment that can grow as a background to this.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I felt this, I had a really visceral experience of this morning. I saw a video on social media from someone who was talking about the power of leaning into opportunity. So, oh, something arises, go and give it a go. You never know what'll happen. And then that thing will happen. And they were talking about their own experience and a total love for anyone who is in a place where they can follow the breadcrumbs as they come up and can lean into opportunity and has capacity to say yes. Absolutely, absolutely fantastic. I'm sure that feels really incredible. I'm sure, I can feel, I have a moment of feeling like, okay, I bet that lights you up and feels really connecting and empowering and validating. It would be so many wonderful things. The piece I felt when I heard that was, I don't have capacity. Like, if I said yes to a dinner tonight, I would have to scaffold so much of my life to make that happen. I can't just walk out of my house any time of the day when I feel like it and go and do something I feel like doing. The people in my house have too many needs for that. And I have to think about so many things, what time of day it is, what the need's going to be, what's happened up to this moment, what needs to happen next. Like it's constant thinking about all the moving pieces. And what I then realized was that the bit I struggle with is what I perceive as a lack of freedom and flexibility in my life. And that is the piece I'm currently struggling with. And that is okay. It is okay for me to be currently struggling with my perception that I have no flexibility and freedom. And other people could see my life and feel like I'm making choices that create that for myself. People might think that I am giving that too much weight and putting too much of myself into other people. And that's okay. That's their perception of how I'm doing my life. And that's based on their own needs and feelings and experiences at this moment. So it was a good reminder for me, because my first thought was to want to cut their legs off and just be like, how dare you? But then I stopped and got curious and thought, what is it about this that is actually making me feel like this? Because they have every right to have that experience for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's there's privilege in it, but the privilege, I suppose, is in what kind of opportunities you get to explore too. And, for those of us in caring situations that are a bit more time, require a lot more time and energy and things, we can't embrace every opportunity that comes our way and follow all the breadcrumbs. But yeah, and so there is some privilege in that. And I think when it's not acknowledged, it can be a bit, some of that positive thinking can almost just really doesn't acknowledge the privilege that people have if they can just embrace opportunities and change their mindset, and then things will all get suddenly easier. That's not always the case, but I suppose, it's
I'm sure there's also people that would see that and would say, whoa, it would be my worst nightmare to say yes to things. I don't want to go to things and go to social engagements and connect with people. And there would be people who would listen to that same thing and go, oh no, yuck, that's the worst thing I could possibly, why would I say? I want to stay at home.
Yeah.
And so it is all about whatever it is you need. But you're absolutely right, because often there's, advice given of take a break and find a moment, find 5 minutes to sit outside and have a cup of tea and feel the fresh air and really well-meaning and really important self-care advice can get thrown around as if it's really easy. And there are a lot of people who their reality is that they can't take a break. There are families that have to almost separate to parent two children separately. There are families that can't take their children to the same events and have to have another person on standby all the time. There are families who have to give up work to be able to stay home with their children. There are so many things that can impact a person's reality of being able to touch into self-care.
Yeah. Oh, there's been days on end where I've not been able to leave, and sometimes we've needed two adults at a time on one child. And um, yeah, for days, and you don't sleep alone. You sleep with
Yeah.
them. They're not out of your sight, except to go to the toilet, in which case you need another adult. So taking 5 minutes outside, sometimes even that's not possible, and that sounds, nice and easy, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I suppose it's also at the same time, if there's opportunities that come your way that you can take, I try and just focus on
All power
those,
to
and
you. Yeah. Take what you can
yeah,
and leave what you
take
can't. I guess what I'm saying is don't beat yourself up either way. If
yeah,
there's an opportunity and you can take it, then fabulous. If you can't take it, also not beating yourself up about the fact that you can't take it, and knowing that this is for right now, but the only constant is change. So everything is
yeah,
changing, and we don't know how long we're in this, whatever this is right now, whether it's fabulous. Even if you're in a really fabulous place right now and things feel really great, really connected, you really feel like you're on a great path, that's not reliably going to stay that way either, because the only constant is change. And that's not to say, haha, sucker, it's bad, it's good for you. So get ready. That's just to say the only constant is change, and there'll constantly be both positives and negatives. And it's just about which one we're seeing more of in that moment. Because when there's
yeah,
good stuff, there's also bad stuff. And when there's bad stuff, there's also good stuff. It's just how it works. And I've talked about that before, so I won't keep going on about it. But it's good to just know that this is what you need right now.
mm,
And I used to really struggle with missing out on things. I used to really feel sad that I can't go to that thing. I have to say no to that. Was expecting to go there, and now suddenly I can't. That it used to really knock me around, and I'd get really sad and resentful. And I would just, hate on the people that could just step out of their door and go to the thing that they expected to go to. And I've, had to realize, but also am happy to realize that sometimes there's actually a gift in not having to go to all the things. Sometimes when I let my feelings sit, I actually realize I'm okay with missing that. Actually, what I need right now is less stimulation.
yeah,
And also realizing that this is really purposeful for me. Perhaps there's a part of me that really needed to get a great perception of what it feels like to be in this situation. I think this helps me in my work. I think it helps me going forward in connecting with the people I really want to connect with. And so there is purpose in my experiences, even though sometimes it feels like nothing good can come from this at all.
yeah. No, it's hard. And I was talking to another mum last week, like that the grief is really real,
Yeah.
that, that life doesn't look like what you wanted it to look like, and you can't, go for work opportunities or different things, activities or things that come your way, and you can't necessarily pursue those right now. But yeah, um, your saying that you say a lot is, yeah, the only constant thing is change, and that's become a bit of a mantra in my head of no, Kate says the only constant thing is change, and this will change too, and one day my life won't look like this as it does now, and yeah, there will be more opportunities and more time, and that's, yeah, now you just move on through. Mm,
And privilege can look like all kinds of things. When you were talking before about that, it can often be a privileged position to be able to live your life however you choose. I was thinking my privilege is the amount of time I get to spend with my kids and how well I know them. And that's a privilege. The privilege that if I was working full time and they were going to school, I wouldn't get because there'd be less time together.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
sure our connection is stronger than it could have been in a parallel universe.
And there are people that might be talking about, that seemingly appear like they have all the freedom and they're, able to pursue all these opportunities and the flexibility, but they really desperately want a family
Yeah.
and, and we're the privileged ones. And
Yeah.
so,
Privilege
yeah,
looks like all kinds of things, and
yeah.
we all have privilege in whatever experience we're having. Sometimes you just have to dig through a little bit of shit to find it, or you have to, you know, polish a turd
Oh,
to
I love your
be able
shit
to acknowledge
metaphors.
it. So full of shit, Emily. People must listen to this and just be like, Kate, you're the one that's full of shit. I just blurt stuff out everywhere. Okay, the only other thing I want to talk about with Sarah, and then we'll probably wrap it up before I just spill any more rubbish, is that the peace, and we are evidence of this, that the power of finding your people, of finding your community. Sarah talked about when she'd found her yoga community and how grounding and connecting that was for her. And you can so often feel like that you don't have your people, or no one's really giving you what you need. And then someone will pop up out of nowhere and give you what you didn't even know you needed. And suddenly there's a moment of connection. Because sometimes we don't find the big community. Sometimes we don't have the group of friends, but we can find pockets of people.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think that knowing how important that is, because it's so easy to isolate. And so finding community any way you can, whether that's even online, it's at the supermarket, it's however it needs to be.
Yeah,
And
online's been huge for us in terms of finding a community and being able to connect with other people that are in the same kind of positions that I'm in. It's
yeah.
um,
And I often think this is another visual that I hold about people in my life, that I've got like kind of this chorus of people. So I might have, I've got my family members, I've got people I might have known for a long time, I might have groups I'm a part of. And so they all form a chorus. And at different times, people unexpectedly step out of that chorus and become like leading parts. And suddenly I'm having a song. And you're an example of that. You were part of my chorus. You were part of the singing group that I was a part of. And we'd kind of we'd connected, but you were in the chorus. And then all of a sudden you stepped forward and became one of my leading parts. And I would never have predicted that. So just by allowing the chorus to exist and then taking note to who's stepping forward and, auditioning for a leading part, and then connecting with, does that serve me or not? Because, of course, we're all having different experiences and we're all on different planes, but different people will step in and out at different times.
Yeah.
And some will disappear from the chorus. Some will be a leading part for a while and you'll think they're really insignificant, they're really significant, and they're going to stick around forever and they're always going to be the leading part. And then they'll step back into the chorus and then they'll exit the chorus and you'll be left going, where did they go? Like, what? But that happens too, because they stepped into another place and they needed to fulfill another piece for them, and that's okay. But I find through my life, different people step up into a lead role. And if I try and hold people in a lead role, it never works out well. And I'm always left feeling just really icky because it feels like there's something missing in the relationship. And it's usually because
Mm.
I'm holding on to something that's not serving me any longer. Because
Yeah.
unfortunately, as we evolve, we have to let go of relationships in order to fully grow. Not every relationship
Yeah.
will grow with us.
I love that analogy so much. Yeah, that's yeah, so true. Yeah,
Mm. So I hope
yeah,
today, whoever's listening to this can see their chorus and can connect with a leading part. And if there's someone in your chorus that you've been wanting to create a leading part with, then be brave and have an attempt at reaching out, because you never know what's going to happen with any connection at any time. Yeah.
yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Shall we leave it there?
Yeah. We'll see you all soon.
Lovely. Thanks, Kate. For more information on today's conversation and guest, head to the links provided in the description. Please like and subscribe to keep up to date with more content, and it helps us out with the algorithm too. Beyond the Neurotype is not a licensed medical or mental health service, and any information or advice given is general in nature. Please seek professional help if anything mentioned in today's episode has raised questions or concerns.